Alright, before we get started here, there are a few things that I want to address on our mini intern kit. I forgot to mention in the last video where I introduced our project and we talked about the materials that you needed to gather, tools and glue and so forth. There was something that I failed to mention, and you may want to get yourself one of these. I'll hold it up here and see, hopefully it'll show up. These are CA glue tips. They fit over the nozzle on your bottle of CA, and you can see, hopefully, it's got a very, very small tube at the end of it. And that allows you to more carefully, more accurately meter small amounts of this thin viscosity CA onto the joints that you wish to glue. That is something that you really ought to get a hold of. You can get those at your local hobby shop, and if you look around online, I'm sure you can find them, but just do a search in Google for CA tips. Anyway, something that you really need to have. Now, before we get started, well, you can see here I've got my wax paper down. Since I'm building on glass, I've got 2 layers of wax paper because sometimes my glue will actually wick through one layer. So I've got 2 layers down, and I'm basically ready to start building. Before you get started, what I want you to do, what I highly recommend, is take all of your parts in your kit and take them out of the sheets. You know, they're all laser cut and they almost will just fall out. But I would say sit down and start going through each of those sheets and popping out all of the parts and put them in a nice pile. As well, what you may want to do is get your sandpaper and work all of these things. You know, we've got a little, hard to see here, but there's a little nick here, and there's another one here. I don't know if that's, there we go. Anyway, I have sanded those smooth with my sandpaper. I've just touched over all of the places where there was leftover wood. And put that back where I got it. Leftover wood in the sheet, you know, where the part was being held in the sheet by the in the laser cutting process. I would take all of the parts out. I would very carefully sand all those pieces just to take that little extra balsa that needs to come off away. It's easier to do that now than at the end after you're trying to sand everything smooth before we start our covering. Also, get intimate. Can't express this enough. Get intimate with your parts layout sheet, because this is your key. This tells you what everything does and roughly where it goes. Our written instructions will give us more clear data on how things all fit together. But nonetheless, you want to get real intimate with this. Using this as your legend, as your guide, start determining what parts are what. Now, you can see here, I've already started building. And I'll see if I can zoom in and show you what I've got going on here. I started identifying parts. And a lot of these rib parts and all look very similar. The first thing we start building is a wing. Being that they all look so similar, it's very important that you understand, you know, what everything is. You've got an N1, and there's 2 of them. It's basically the nose portion of a rib that goes in the outer panel of the wing. You've got a T1, that's the tail end of that same wing rib. You've got SR1 and SR2, and those are basically sub ribs, and they're the front portion of sub ribs. T2 is another style of tail back rib, and you've got an N3, an N4, a CT, a center tail rib. Anyway, I've gone through and I've understood, you know, what everything is here. I want to show you also this particular airplane. We'll actually get into the build momentarily, but I'm actually tickled with all of Laser Toys kits that they work up. Here is, hopefully you can see that, there is a left wing right there. Now there's not a drop of glue on it, and that's one of the things that I just really dig about Laser Toys and the way old Dave Thacker designs his airplanes. You put this entire panel together without a drop of glue, and you can make certain that everything is all properly seated, all the parts are tabbed and slotted and notched, and you can basically get everything fitting perfectly as it should before you put a drop of glue on the thing. And that's the way to go. These are the easiest to build kits on the planet. This one here is already glued up, or already assembled. It just needs to be glued, and we'll get to that later. But what we're going to do now is we're going to actually assemble one of these wings. So gather up all of your parts, looking at your instruction sheet and your legend for telling you what all the parts are, and get all that stuff gathered up, and we'll get ready to build a wing. Okay, as the instructions call out for, the first thing we're going to assemble is the trailing edge center section for our wing. And you've got a couple of parts here. I'll zoom in and see if you can see this. And there we go. Not too shabby. We've got a couple of parts here. This one's balsa, and this one is a light ply. You may have to look around for this piece. This is the front of the leading edge tail piece assembly, whatever. And I actually found it in our little hardware package. There we go. It was in our hardware package in this little piece. So I punched it out, sanded the tips off, and now we've got our two pieces. The way you assemble this is very simple in the fact that all we're going to do, it goes like this, we're just going to take our plywood piece as such, and it's a dovetail, so it just pops together. One of the things you're going to notice when you work on this is the fit from part to part is just outstanding. Anyway, all we have left to do now is we would take our glue bottle. I've already put it away, but we'll take our glue bottle and we'll just ever so carefully, we're going to wick in thin CA all along that seam. It takes very little. So we can go ahead and do that because I have an opportunity to show you a neat little trick that I promised you. First off, I'm going to back out just a little bit. Okay, first off, we'll take our CA like I had suggested and make sure our parts are mashed together really nice. And then we're just going to put a little bit of glue in here to glue those together. Now I'm basically not squeezing this bottle at all. I'm just basically letting it just wick right in there as such. Now we're going to not spray it with our accelerator. We're going to take our accelerator out and we're going to let our stem just drop, a little bit of drop on there from our pickup tube and our sprayer. That allows you to use very, very little accelerator. You don't need too much. If you put too much on, it's going to bubble all up. It's going to be real hard, and you're going to end up with a piece that you're going to have to sand. Not so important on this trailing edge center section, but as we start building our fuselage and things like that, it's going to be much more important. So anyway, there's that center section. Step one of the wing assembly is now done. We can set that aside and we can start gathering our parts for the rest of the build of this right wing panel. Now remember, I showed you we had already built I had already built off camera a left wing panel. It's very important with these parts. Everything is fully symmetrical, but it's very easy. If you're not paying attention, you can actually build two of the same panel. And I can tell you that two left or two right wing panels are not going to give you an airplane that flies. You need to have a left panel and a right panel. I've already built this left panel as I showed you earlier, so now we're going to build a right. So I've got my ribs pulled out, and I've got my leading edge, my spar, my trailing edge, and then our right wing panel tip. So we're basically ready to start here. Something that I did need to share with you real quick before you start getting really in depth with this. On our plan, now this kind of surprised me. I don't normally see this, but I did find it and I want to point it out to you. We've got a layout. It tells us here in our plan what each of these ribs and sub-ribs, what they're numbered, what their part numbers are. Well, as I'm pulling all these parts out and taking them out of the tree, out of the sheet, and I'm dressing the parts with the sandpaper and getting everything nice and laying them out so I know which parts are which. And again, so many of them look almost identical. Well, what I did notice is that on our plan, we've got one rib that's labeled SR2. That should be labeled SR1 because that gives us 6. SR stands for subrib, and that gives us 6 total subrib 1, 6 total subrib 2. In other words, 3 for each wing panel. That may give you a snag there, and you'll be wanting to call Radical and say, "Hey, man, I don't understand. I've got all these, and I don't have 8 SR2s and 4 SR1s." So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And with that, we'll get ready to start this assembly. Okay, as you can probably see, I have laid out all of my parts in order for this assembly of this right-hand wing panel using my plan sheet, my legend, as a guide. And, basically starting off, I've got my N1, followed by my subrib 1, N2, subrib 1, N2, subrib 2, and so forth. I've got them all laid out in order. Now, the way I started is I took the spar. Now, the spar is going to look kind of funny here. There we go. You can see the spar. This is the side with this curve here. This is the tip. And if you look at it in this fashion, you'll see that if you imagine where the center line of this may be, well, we've got this notch here that's actually would be below that center line. That tells us that we have this in the orientation so that this is the top of the spar and this is the bottom of the spar. So, holding it like that, now we are building a right panel, I can simply start taking these trailing edge portions, and I'll start with my thickest one first. This is 3/32 thick, it's thicker than the others. I'll just push its tab right there in the hole. And I'm going to skip a hole, and then I'll go into the next one. And there, you can probably see here, there's a little bump on this tab that goes through, and that little bump points up. It's on the bottom side. Anyway, it's a flat bottom airfoil, so it goes, like that. I hope that makes sense to you. But anyway, we're going to put all of our trailing edge portions of our ribs in place. And skipping, there's notches that these are going through. Well, we start off at the very tip. We got a tail rib piece, and then we skip a hole. And then we got another tail end backside rib, and then we skip a hole. And we're going to do that all the way down until we run out of these long backside tail rib pieces. As such, I hope you can see that. Just push them through. Again, the laser cutting, the fit, and the precision of this is amazing. Okay, now you'll see that we've got these protruding tabs, coming through our spar, and those correspond to our ribs that have female tabs on them. So we're just going to slide it, pop it into place, set it as such. Perhaps maybe you can see what I've done there. Hope that shows up. Anyway, we're going to do that to each one of these. Once you get it and you start on it, you'll say, "Oh, I see, that's cool." And I'm just going down, popping all these in place. And pick up the right one. Okay, very cool. We got them all in place. Now we're going to take our other pieces. These are our subribs. Subrib 1, subrib 1, subrib 1, subrib 2, 2, and 2. And we're going to press these in the slots Subrib 1 goes to the to the outermost portion of the wing. And get that in there. And they just pop in and they hold pretty nicely. Keep in mind, we're not going to do any glue until everything is put together and we're certain that it's all straight. As such, all the way down to this last one. And I'm going to hold that so you can probably see what we've got going. Not too shabby. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put on our leading edge stock. Our leading edge looks like so. And the curve side with our little dovetail, perhaps you can see that. The curve side is the outermost portion. The serrated side, I hope that shows, the serrated side is actually to the center section. That's the center part of the wing. So with what we've got here, we can start popping our leading edge into all of our slots. And this may try your patience a little bit because you just got to go a little bit at a time. But see, that's the joy of a kit build or a scratch build, any kind of project that you're building it yourself, is it's kind of, it's fun, it's a little therapeutic, it's one of my favorite things to do. This is how I used to unwind. Is I would, nothing would relax me more than after a hard day's work than slipping out to the workshop and getting an opportunity to do some building. And see, we're getting there. Don't force it. If for any reason something doesn't seem to go in and line up, there's a reason for it. And if you just take your time, eventually you'll get them all in. And we've almost got it. There we go. So all I'm doing is just working it all in place. And once you've got it all in place, you'll understand, you'll be able to tell that it's right because everything just fits nicely, and that's it. Now we're going to do the same thing for our trailing edge. Again, our trailing edge piece, the serrated end, goes toward the center section, while this little dovetail end goes toward the outermost tip of the wing. So we're going to set it up like that, and I'll set it into place, and I'll basically just start popping our back end parts of our ribs into our slots. And I'll just work my way all the way down, and they will fit nicely. Just takes a little playing around with to get them. No trimming necessary. Don't force anything. I heard a little crunch of balsa there, so I could tell I was forcing it. Anyhow, here we go. I can see just from looking at this, and you guys may not be able to see it, but it looks to me like I'm out of a slot somewhere on the leading edge. So there it is right there. We'll pop that out of place. There we go. You can get a pretty good reference as to how square everything is. If something is out, some tab or something is out, by the way the wing lays down flat. There we go. We're good. Then you can come back and we'll slide on our wing tip. And just basically we're going to slide it into the slot on our spar. And once we've got that in place, now we can slide in our little dovetails here, and that'll help also to square everything up. Get this one here. And with that, we've got a wing panel just about ready to glue up. We do have some other things here. We've got two spars. Two simple spars. You'll punch these out. They're referenced on our drawing. But these two spars will go You may be able to see, I don't know, but there's an angle on each end of these spars. We're basically going to put it so that the angle, it stays all flat on the top against the spar. And there's a slot in the sub ribs that allows for that. And I'll go in and drop this one in. And yeah. And once you are satisfied that you've got everything in place and everything is square, what I would recommend you do is perhaps take a straight edge, this is just an old ruler, metal ruler, and I can put it like that and it'll hold my work flat down to my workbench. Now what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll just put glue, a little thin CA glue at each joint all the way down. And I will do that to that one and to my left side wing panel, and then we'll talk about the center section in just a moment.